Fans have been waiting for an entire decade for the return of college sports video games from developer EA Sports after a lawsuit halted them back in 2014, and that was when former UCLA basketball player Ed O'Bannon sued to be compensated for the use of his name, image, and likeness. This summer, EA Sports College Football is set to return, and now EA will be compensating players with an NIL deal. However, who is the deal actually good for? Let's discuss this and much more with a sports business reporter covering college athletics for Front Office Sports. Her name is Amanda Christovich, and she joins me now. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Always good to have you. Always good to talk about this. And you were the person I definitely wanted to talk to about this because I knew you would write something about this. You cover college sports on the business side so well. And Amanda, I want to give people the cliff notes of this deal surrounding EA Sports College Football 25. And the cliff notes are that all 134 FBS teams, they're going to be in the game with more than 11,000 players expected to be in this game. Now, players can opt in via the Compass NIL app, and they will receive $600 and a copy of the game. Now, I got to be honest for the people. When I saw this news, I basically said, okay, the players here have the option to be in the game for the entirety of their college playing days, and they get the copy of a game and enough money basically to buy a console to play it on each year they want to play it. Is this a good deal for the players?
I think the short answer is no, in the sense that it's certainly not up to industry standard, which I imagine we'll talk about in a second. But, the players are getting a one-time payment and no royalties. They're talking about opportunities to maybe get additional NIL money through more promotions for the game. But ultimately, almost every other, especially EA video game with athletes, has royalties, right? It has the opportunity for athletes to make money based on how many games are sold. That's usually where the money is. The one-time payment is really like usually the smallest part of it. And so there are certainly plenty of folks saying, well, it's better than nothing, and of course it is better than nothing, but it's again still not what the industry standard for this sort of product should be.
Right, and just saying that it's better than nothing doesn't necessarily mean that it is good for the players involved. And you mentioned this, Amanda, because the players, they won't receive royalties tied to the game sales, even though, as you mentioned, across sports video games, it's common for athletes to receive royalties. Is this a case of a giant company, EA in this situation, viewing these college athletes, as individuals who will just be happy to have the opportunity to be part of a historic game and also get a little pocket change here?
Yeah, I think there was one college athlete advocacy group called the College Football Players Association, and they sort of said that EA is treating the players like children, giving them, a video game rather than royalties, rather than, a long-term opportunity for revenue. I think, though, EA is taking advantage of an opportunity that, a problem that they didn't create, which is that there's no one really to negotiate on the player's behalf. There's no union, there's no body that would be serving the role that a players union would serve for, NFL players or NBA players, for example. And so, I don't necessarily know that it's EA being the big bad wolf so much as EA just doesn't really have anyone that they have to negotiate with that's going to, really make them drive up the price.
Right. Now, I understand EA is just working in the realms of the system that is. But then you bring this up, and you and I have spoken about this in terms of college athletes. And with this deal being offered to the players, does this, in your eyes, further show the issues that we might have with NIL deals and why there might be a need for college athletes to have a union? And is that a place that we're headed to? Does this kind of shine light in saying that there is a need for college athletes to have a union so they can broker better deals for themselves?
Yes and yes. This whole the whole past year, with these negotiations for the EA deal ongoing, have brought up many questions about who has the jurisdiction to to negotiate on behalf of the players, and who's good at that, right? So if you remember, there was a lawsuit that I covered, I think last summer now, where one organization that was created to negotiate these kind of group deals, they're called group licensing deals, sued EA to sort of say, hey, we have agreements with schools and you're circumventing them by using a different company called One Team Partners to facilitate these deals. Now, neither of those groups are unions. They have experience with group licensing. They have experience putting these sorts of products together, but they're facilitators. They're not unions. And so I definitely think that if there was a union, there would, especially for the big group deals, that would benefit the athletes greatly. And then to your question about, is that where we're headed? I don't need to rattle off all the cases that, would result in that, but there are several, labor cases and other types of federal court cases that are pushing college sports in that direction. The most, I think, the one that I'll be covering next, actually, maybe not. No, the one I'll be covering next that you need to know about is the Dartmouth men's basketball case. See, they're all like they all get mixed up in my head because there's so many.
There's so many right now. We can't blame you, but it feels like there's a push for that because there's so many cases like that out here.
Yes, and the Dartmouth case for men's basketball players to unionize, the National Labor Relations Board said that the athletes are in fact employees and that they are able to unionize. And so there's going to be an election at Dartmouth in a couple weeks. I'll be there to cover the election and then the basketball game they're going to play a few hours later, which should be interesting. So yeah, that's definitely the direction that we're headed in. And this EA deal shows how much these players need somebody whose full-time job is to advocate on their behalf.
No doubt about that, and it'll be very interesting to see as we move through this direction and all the cases that you will be covering, and I understand why you can mix some of those up because there's so many right now. Last thing for me, Amanda, how do you see this whole thing playing out? Because 11,000 athletes expected to be in this game. Do you expect most players to take the deal, and will stars specifically in the sport of college football not go for the deal because they might want better for those that come after them playing college football? How do you see this all playing out?
I think most of the players are going to opt into the deal, not because it's a good deal, but because they have no leverage to negotiate something else. And I think that the star players are going to be able to get their deals sweetened, I guess you could say, through this extra opportunity for NIL compensation for promoting the game, which is what EA said is going to be part of, there's going to be opportunities for more compensation. I think that's how they're going to get the big stars, to opt in, because like with the Fanatics jersey deal several months ago, there were a lot of high-level players who didn't want to opt into that deal because it wasn't good enough for them, right? They have agents, they're making 6 figures, 7 figures, but a player who doesn't have name recognition, doesn't have an agent, maybe can't afford one, is probably going to opt into this deal, and that's the majority of them. But again, if they had leverage, if they were organized, I think it would be a much different story.
Yeah, it would be, and it's going to be so interesting to see what goes on and going forward this. Either way, EA Sports College Football 25 will be out this summer. We'll see how many players take the deal, don't take the deal. It'll be very interesting to watch. You know who will be on top of that? That will be Amanda Christovich. She does a great job covering sports business around college sports for Front Office Sports. Such a fantastic job. Amanda, always good to see you, always good to talk to you. Thank you for the insight. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.